We rely on software for literally everything, from our banking apps to our social media feeds. And behind the scenes, there's this whole army of cybersecurity researchers working to find bugs before the bad guys do. But what happens when the very science they're using has a flaw of its own? Well, that's what we're diving into today. So, one of the biggest weapons we have against these hidden software dangers is a technique called fuzzing. But some recent research has uncovered a potential crisis right at the heart of the field. And it's asking a pretty scary question. Are the very tools we trust to protect us built on a foundation of sand? So what in the world is fuzzing? Okay, think of it as an automated way to just break stuff on purpose. You're basically throwing tons of random, weird, malformed data at a program to see what makes it crash or spit out an error. And I love this analogy of shaking a vending machine, right? You're not just putting in your money nicely, you're kicking it, you're shaking it, you're trying everything you can think of to see if a bug or, a free soda pops out. And look, this isn't just some theory locked away in a university lab. We're talking about tech giants. Google, Meta, Oracle, they all use fuzzing, and they use it a lot. It's a fundamental part of how they secure the browsers and apps that literally billions of us use every single day. So yeah, making sure it actually works is kind of important. And this is where we hit the paradox. On one hand, the promise of all this research is huge, right? Find more bugs and find them faster, create better, more powerful tools, build on what others have discovered. But here's the catch. Actually proving that your new fuzzer is better than the old one is incredibly difficult. Fuzzing is, by its very nature, a random process, and that makes fair comparisons and getting the same result twice a massive, massive challenge. So this whole mess got a team of researchers thinking. They started asking a really tough question. Can we actually trust the results being published in the top scientific papers? They decided to find out, so they launched this huge investigation into the real state of fuzzing research. And they attacked this problem from two angles. First, they did a massive literature survey, just systematically tearing through hundreds of published papers. And then they rolled up their sleeves and actually tried to reproduce the results from 8 different fuzzing tools to see if they could get the same outcomes. And this wasn't just a quick weekend project. The story really kicks off back in 2018, when this landmark paper came out that laid out clear guidelines for how you're supposed to evaluate fuzzers. Then, for years, this team analyzed 150 papers from the most prestigious conferences out there. Finally, in 2024, the verdicts came in. So, what did they find? Well, what they found pointed to some pretty serious cracks in the scientific foundation of the whole field. It's a story told through shoddy statistics, unfair comparisons, and, you won't believe this, some really questionable bug reports. Okay, so the first major red flag was a pretty widespread lack of statistical rigor. I mean, when you're dealing with something random like fuzzing, you have to use statistics. It's the only way to prove your results weren't just a complete and total lucky fluke. And when they crunched the numbers, it was pretty shocking. A staggering 63%. Almost 2/3 of the papers they looked at used zero statistical tests whatsoever to back up their claims. They were just throwing numbers out there and expecting everyone to take their word for it. And oh, it gets so much worse. See, to do statistics right, you have to run your experiment over and over again. But get this, the researchers found that 55% of papers ran fewer than 10 trials. I mean, with that little data, any statistical test you run is basically meaningless. It's just not enough to draw a real conclusion. But the investigation didn't stop with the fuzzy math. The next thing they uncovered was that a lot of these papers were setting up these totally unfair fights. They were rigging the game to make their new, shiny fuzzer look way better than it actually was. And this table breaks down exactly how they were stacking the deck. In some cases, about 5%, they literally just gave their tool more horsepower, like twice the CPU cores. Another 5% gave their fuzzer a head start with better initial seed files. That's like giving one marathon runner a map of all the shortcuts before the race even starts. And then you've got almost a quarter of the papers that just didn't even bother comparing against the best tools out there. They picked weaker opponents to make themselves look like champions. But really, the ultimate goal of any fuzzer is to find real bugs. And the ultimate proof is getting what's called a CVE number. It's like a trophy for finding a verified security vulnerability. But when the investigators started looking into the CVEs claimed in these papers, they found the smoking gun. This chart really says it all. They looked at 339 CVEs claimed in these papers. Only 43%, less than half were actually valid, confirmed, and fixed bugs. A quarter of them were just stuck in this reserved limbo, meaning a number was requested but never actually published. And a combined 31% were either ignored by the software developers or were just flat out invalid. Maybe they were duplicates or not even a security risk at all.
You know, the academic pressure to show real-world impact created a problem so bad that one software maintainer, completely fed up, gave it a name: Fuzzer Fake CVs. And this isn't just about bragging rights. It wastes the time of the people actually trying to fix software and could trick the entire industry into using tools that aren't actually the best ones for the job.
Okay, but the point of this whole investigation wasn't just to tear everything down, not at all. It was about figuring out how to build the field back up, but this time on solid ground. So, based on everything they found, the researchers laid out a clear blueprint for doing fuzzing research the right way.
And the recommendations are really just common sense when you think about it. First, run more trials, at least 10, so you have enough data. Second, please use actual statistical tests to prove your claims. Third, document everything, your hardware, your software versions, so other people can check your work. Fourth, use standard benchmarks, so everyone's competing on a level playing field. And finally, be responsible. The goal is to get software fixed, not just to rack up a high score of CVEs for your paper.
So where does this leave all of us? In a field as critical as cybersecurity, making sure our science is solid, reproducible, and honest isn't just some academic debate. It's absolutely fundamental. It's about ensuring the tools that protect our digital lives are genuinely the best we can build. Because if they're not, the bugs they miss could be the very ones that end up affecting all of us.